Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm MrTieDye. So today I'm going to do a snowflake design because I'm noticing the leaves changing color, so that means Christmas is just around the corner. And that way anybody wanting to make snowflakes where they can put them out there and sell, you'll have plenty of time to do that. So what I've done is just kind of drawn on a little bit of a half circle just to kind of mark out how big I want the snowflake. So I'm doing it, it's going to fit on hugely on the chest here. And then we're going to tie this up similarly to a Ron star, and I'll put that video down in there just in case you want to see the differences, but this is going to be a little bit different than that. So what I'm starting with is a t-shirt that's been soaked in soda ash. It's been spun out so it's just barely damp. That's my preferred method for tying and folding and dyeing things. I've also centered the tee, or folded it in half, by tucking one sleeve in the other. So I have just the front of the t-shirt that I'm working on here, and this is the back and the two sleeves that are tucked in here together. So I will put a video link to that, how I do that centering, down in the description box. So anyways, we're going to get started here. So what I'm going to do is just put my finger right here on the center point here and just fold this all the way up. And since I put little lines on here, I can kind of just even line those lines up there. But really you're just folding this in half to wherever you want your snowflake to be on the t-shirt. And I'm going to fold off the screen here. Okay, so this here is the center where I just folded the bottom up to the top here. And I'm going to fold this line here back, and I'm going to lay it right along this edge over here. This is the edge that was created when I folded the bottom of the t-shirt up. So we're just folding it back and just lining it up right there on that edge. And then I'm going to take this and fold it back one more time on itself. So there's a couple layers now of fabric there, two thick folds, well actually three thick folds there. So now I'm going to pick up from the center and from the top here. I'm going to grab all three of those folds, and if you just pick it up quickly you can kind of lay it back down and then just kind of adjust things back out. And then I'm going to take the top of the t-shirt and fold it up right along that edge also. And then one more time, once I smooth everything out, I'm going to take this bottom edge and I'm going to fold it up along there. So now I'm going to turn this thing around. We're going to break out the sinew. I do have a video on how I use kite string and sinew. So on this one here we're going to be tying this very tight. So I'm going to use sinew for that. The other thing I want to do is just make a mark. Here is my collar of the t-shirt, so I want to make sure that I put just a little bit of a marker here to remind myself that this here is where I want to finish out the snowflake design at, and that's going to put just one point up here. Otherwise you'll have 2 points, and it doesn't matter whichever way you like it, but I like mine with just the 1 point coming up under the neck here. So what I'm going to do to start with, I have my sinew dowel that I got from Nikolai Savin. I'll put a link to his page just in case you want to get yourself one of these. It's really handy to hold all your sinew on there, and then nice and comfortable to grip with. So I start out and I'll just take this center point here and I just fold it down over top of my sinew. That just allows me to kind of grab that sinew now, and then I wrap it around a couple times, pull that tight, a couple more, and then I lock it in. And then from here I'm going to fold this up. So I'm going to do 3 folds on this. I'm going to go up, down, and then back up again, and I want to end with whatever fold where I want the 1 point. So that's why I know I need to fold up the first time. So what I'm going to do is take this edge right here. Let's see if we can zoom in some. This edge here, and I'm going to lay it up. So I'm going to flop it over at a 45-degree angle and lay it right next to this tie that I have going across here. And I'm just going to pick up the whole t-shirt and flop it over just so that I can get a nice good tie on that. So I've just folded that up and over, so now I have this big thick fold here. And then just going in the same direction, my sinew I've wrapped over, so as I come around now, I'm going to wrap under this. Let me re-hold this, see if I can show you. So I'm going to come underneath, and I'm going to go about 3/4 of the way. I'm going to go about 3/4 of the way on this gap. So this here's that fold I did. So I'm coming over, and then I'm just going to wrap that right back under, and it's just going right close to my initial tie line there. So what I'll usually do is wrap that 2 times, and then I grab a hold of that and pull the sinew tight, wrap a couple more times, and then I'll pull it a little bit tighter. And one thing you want to make sure of is when you're pulling with your sinew that you're not pulling up towards your face, where if this breaks you might hit yourself in the face. Always try to pull coming sideways or pull going away from you. That way if it breaks you're not hitting yourself. Okay, so that one I folded up. So now this time I'm going to fold down, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take this side here and I'm going to lay it right here at that same kind of 45-degree angle, or even a little bit steeper. But I'm just folding that back, so I'm going to take the whole t-shirt, flop it back over. And then I'm going to, since my sinew, I'm just keep wrapping the sinew the same direction. So I'm going to go up, and once again, about 3/4 of the way of this distance here, I'm going to lay that sinew down right there. And I wrap it around twice, hold and pull. And that just kind of takes the slack out. And then I wrap it 2 or 3 more times, and then that's when I pull it really nice and tight. And I try to do it just kind of slowly and gently, and you can feel that in your hand. You can sometimes feel that sinew kind of lock in as your t-shirt compresses there. And this one here, even, I didn't get this spun out quite enough, so it even squirted out just a little bit of soda ash. Okay, so now I have this last fold here that I'm going to do, and this one here, rather than taking just this edge and folding it over, I'm going to go all the way up here to my point, up to this point, this marker. This here is the top of my fold, and is right here under the collar. So that fold there is the one that I'm going to do this with. I'm going to fold this up, and I'm basically laying this, here's the top of my circle right here, and I'm laying that on the edge there. So rather than folding it straight up, now I have this big gap here, and what that's going to do is put a long skinny petal on my snowflake, the last one. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wrap my sinew in the same direction. So here's that big fold here that I put over there. And there was a fly that just came right in the... let's see. So I'm going to go about 3/4 of the way again and wrap that under and come right down next to my tie here. So that's going to wad this big bit of fabric up, but that's, like I say, is going to be our point there. So I will wrap it twice, and then I'm going to pull some of that slack out. So I just grab that, pull that, cinch it down, and you can see it kind of just wanting to fold up there, accordion fold on itself there. That's a good thing. So as I pull that a little bit more, I can feel that tighten up some more, and now at this point I'll wrap it a couple more times and then pull it tight. Okay, and then what I like to do, so we got our 3 folds. We did the initial center tie, this fold, that fold, third fold here. Okay, sorry. Let me say that again. So we have 3 folds here. So this here is the center tie where I started the design at, and then I folded once, twice, the third time. So on this third fold, you got this, all this extra fabric bunched up here. So what I'm going to do after I tied this one here and pulled it down nice and tight is I'm going to take my sinew up and I'm going to wrap across that. So I hope that makes sense. That big wad of fabric, I'm just wrapping straight up from the bottom here, right where I tied things off at. And I'm wrapping around there. I'm going to wrap it twice, pull and hold, or hold and pull, and then I'm going to tighten that up a little bit more with 2 more wraps on it. Pull it nice and tight, and what this is going to do is give us a little bit of texture, give us some shape within that big tall petal, and you'll see that once we do the reveal. But that's how I tie that part of the snowflake up, and then I'll go ahead and wrap it just a couple more times, pull it nice and tight, and then I cut the tail, and I just kind of do a quick knot in there. Okay, so now here's my tail, or when I'm going to unwrap this, that's what I'm going to pull, so I'll go ahead and just loosely wrap that up there. And then what I like to do is just kind of open these folds up just a little bit. I don't completely unfold it, but I like to just kind of wrinkle it up just to give it just a little bit of a different shape to it there. So I'm not leaving it in the nice precise folds. You can if you want to, but I like to have mine just a little bit more wrinkled up, but still, you know, keeping it fairly flat because we're going to tie this up a little bit more. But this here is just for me, for doing the snowflake. I just like to have a little bit of extra texture in there, so I'll kind of even just give a little bit of a scrunch on some of these folds in here just to play with the patterning a little bit. So once I have that done, then what I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to use my sinew here. So I'm going to go a little bit away, so let me flip this back over. So here's our snowflake. This here was the end of the snowflake where it ended up right here at the collar, and then this was the bit where we tied all that loose fabric up to give some patterning. So what I'm going to do is just go up a little bit from there, and it just happens to be right here at the collar, and I'm going to start just another tie here. So I'm just going to kind of scrunch that up, accordion it just a little bit there, or it just kind of folds itself as you pull it, and just pull that a little bit tight. I'm not doing it real tight, and then just kind of scrunch up the rest. And like I say, this last bit of tying the rest of it up is your choice of how you like to do it. Sometimes I'll open it all the way up and then scrunch it, but this here just adds a little bit of extra texture into the t-shirt when I'm doing the snowflake, I like. So I'm not pulling these quite as tight as I did on the snowflake here, because I do want some dye to be able to get down into most of those cracks and crevices there. Okay, so there's the end of that one. So once again, I'm going to tie just a little knot in this here so I know which or where the tail is when I want to untie this. So there is the snowflake so far. There we go. There's the snowflake and the rest of the texture on the t-shirt. I'm going to set this aside. Since it's winter time, I can't just set it outside in the sun. So what I'm going to do is set it next to a heater vent. And I'm going to leave it there for a few days until this dries out completely. And then I'm going to go in and get this dyed up, and I'll finish this video. Thank you. We're back to put some color on this snowflake. I've let this sit out and dry for a few days, and now it's time to put some dye on. But whenever you try to add dye to a dry t-shirt, it doesn't happen every time, but there's a lot of times that the dye will want to just roll off rather than soak in. So what I do to prevent that is use some soda ash water, and I just lightly spritz the whole t-shirt, and that allows the dye to just soak in rather than roll off. And it doesn't take much, just enough to get the outside of the t-shirt wet. So you don't want to soak it down, or you've kind of defeated your purpose of letting it dry out. So once I give it a soak down, then we're going to dye this. What I'm going to start with is some kind of an icy blue color here. And what that was is I just filled up part of a bottle with water and then added just a little bit of turquoise to it. So this here is just a really light turquoise that I'm using. And what I'm going to do first off is go over all of my lines here, all of my sinew lines that I tied, and just around them a little bit, and that's just going to add some texture into the snowflake. So that's just how I like to do it. This isn't how everybody has to do it, but you can also use thick water, and that would put these white highlights into your snowflake. And then remember, I tied up more of the t-shirt here, so I'm going to do the same thing with all of those. Just put this light icy blue color right over top of the sinew lines. Alright, the next thing that I like to do, and once again this here is just all my own personal choice for dyeing a snowflake, is I'll go ahead and darken up my turquoise that I put on here just a little bit. So I'm this thin water here, or thin light colored turquoise, I'm just going to add some more darker turquoise to it just to darken that up just a little bit. And then I'm going to go back over these same lines and add more to them. So this here is just going to give me just a little bit darker bit of turquoise detail in there, and I'm kind of splashing that around generously and let that soak in. I like to layer colors, so you'll see in the details later just what this has done. Okay, and now I'm going to use regular turquoise and color in some of these white areas that I didn't splash with the other two. And then we'll do that with the whole t-shirt in all these big areas. So I'm not hitting these spots where I tied with sinew with this darker turquoise. I'm just going right up to this other blue line that I have from the light turquoise. Alright, now more of this lighter turquoise. I'm just kind of hitting more of these spots here, and any ones that I see a little bit of the white lines showing through here. Okay, so I'm going to leave this sit now for about 10 or 15 minutes and just let this dye soak in more, and then I'm going to add some more to it. So I'll be back with this in a few minutes, or 15 or 20 minutes. This has been sitting for about 30 minutes now, and I can see just little bits of white on here. I don't know if you can see those white spots on there. That just means to me, yeah, see there's dye or white spots down inside there, and that's more apparent when you have little white spots there. That gives you the hint that there's still white in there. So I'm going to go ahead and coat this again. Where's my... So there's my lighter turquoise. I'm going to go over all my sinew lines again like I did before, just to make sure that those are all nice and wet. So if any dye is soaking into those areas, it's going to be this lighter dye, because I am going to coat this with a darker color here in a minute. So for me, it's just about layering the colors on, making sure they're soaking in good. I can use this here, lighter turquoise, to get down into some of these cracks here. So any of these cracks that you can open up, sometimes when you tie it with sinew you can't open the cracks up, but some of them you can. So if I can open it up and look in there, then I'll do that and squirt some dye down in where it needs it. And I'm putting a little bit of the darker turquoise on the snowflake since I have that pretty well saturated with the lighter colors. The darker will just stain just a little bit and give me some patterning there. Sometimes it helps to give that a squeeze with a rag or something to get some dye pushed down inside, but then also soak up excess. And I can see just a little bit of dye down, or white spots down in here. So it's just a matter of finding those areas. And sometimes if you can't open it up, then I'll just squeeze it and you can add more dye in there and then give it a squeeze just to press it down inside more. And sometimes it's just a matter of putting some dye on and then setting it aside for 15 or 20 minutes and coming back and checking it again, just to get a good saturation going. And now I'm going to add some darker, even darker blue. So I got 3 different shades of turquoise on here. And now I'm going to add some darker color, and I'm just going to dye like up the sides here. So I'm going to let this batch for 48 hours and then I'll have the results for you in about 2 seconds. So thank you for watching. It's been a while since I've done a reveal video, so I thought I'd do a couple of those. So this one here is the snowflake that I tied up earlier. So there we go with the snowflake. So, and this will lighten up some when I wash it out, because I did use a couple different shades of blue in there. So we'll see what it looks like when it's all washed out.